Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Dietitian. I am your host, Kevin Palmieri. Today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, the one and only Ahren Lynch-Potter. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. It's funny to hear you say that. I'm very good. I'm a guest on my own show.
I was going to say, you have a podcast very similar. It's got a very similar name, probably the same exact one, and I'm sure the intro is probably very similar as well. We wanted to do this because, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to sit down and do a solo episode and pull out pieces of yourself, and sometimes it's just easier to have somebody on the other side. So let's get right into it, brother.
Let's do it.
I wanted to start with this question because I think this question will probably get us going and we'll figure out where we end up. But what is the number one lesson you have learned over the last, let's say this year? What is the number one lesson you have learned this year, and how did you go about learning it?
For 2024, the number one lesson I have learned is what it feels like to be safe. That is huge for me. And it goes very, very deep. So I spent a lot of my life not feeling safe, not being safe. So what I mean by that is that you can understand the concept of like, oh, I know what safety feels like, to be safe and to feel like that no matter what, everything's going to be okay. No matter what life throws my way, I'll handle it. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything. It could be death, divorce, destruction, whatever it is, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. I always have been. And it's not that I'm not afraid, I just know I can handle it. That for me is huge because I spent a lot of my life looking for this feeling in the external world. I would look for it in, if I make enough money, then this feeling I'm looking for, which was me being safe, I'll find it there. Or if I buy this car, if I become really good at martial arts, or this feeling that I'm looking for will be fulfilled. And you can't, all of those things, that path that I was on for many, many years, most of my life, looking for it, I became that. And I say this with my clients, is that your job is to become who you needed when you were younger. That's what most people are looking for. Most people are looking for that, whether they think about it or not. They're like, oh, I want to be a dad. It's like, okay, why do you want to be a dad? Because I know what it feels like not to have a good dad. Oh, okay. Or I want to be really wealthy. Okay. Because I know what it feels like not to be wealthy. It's always, not always, but usually coming from a place as they know what the opposite feels like. And a lot of people actually are running away from that pain. They're running away from this feeling because they know the opposite of it. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's not. It's just why people do what they do. Because they remember the feeling. They're like, the reason you started and you've done over 1,200, 1,300 episodes is because you remember the feeling of what it felt like not to go after your dream in that hotel room. That story you always tell. You know what that feels like.
Yep.
So you have spent years now, hundreds of thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of hours, and you've created the man that you needed in that hotel room to walk through the door.
I've tried.
Pretty cool.
I've tried very, very diligently.
Yeah.
I've tried. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the lesson? What was the, I don't want to assume, not the lesson. What was the pivot? Because I assume there was something that happened that was very challenging. Unfortunately, that's usually the way it seems to work. What was the thing that pivoted that understanding, that belief, that internal dialogue, that conditioning, whatever it may have been?
Yeah, so the pivot for me is about, what year was it? It was 2021. So I was really, really going hard in my sales career. I was making a lot of money. I was crushing it, but I was very anxious. it actually, looking back on it, it was perfect. Everything's perfect. I always have these of course moments. Something happened in your life, it's like, of course. Couldn't have happened any other way. I was very anxious in about 2020, 2021 for a number of different reasons. Like I just shifted out of a job. I'd gone to a new job. I'd found this job where I was making way more money than before. I went and got an Audi, which was really cool. And I was like, man, this is awesome. But I was more anxious within my body. It wasn't a thought thing. It was a body. My body was communicating to me. It was being like, hey man, like, listen to me. That's what it was. And a lot of people don't listen to their bodies. We were taught from a very young age. This is a little caveat. This is what I learned over the weekend. I did a ceremony over the weekend with some wonderful people, and we were talking about not trusting your body. And when did people learn not to trust their body? People learn not to trust their body when they are very young. There's two examples I'm going to give. The first one is when you're at the dinner table and your parents like, finish your dinner. And you're like, I'm not hungry. Too bad, you can't leave the table until you finish your dinner. So that's one way that the mind and the body start breaking the relationship with each other, because the mind's like, I don't give a shit what you feel. You're going to do what I say you're going to do to your own body. And your body's like, but I'm full. I don't want to do anymore. Another example is when a parent would be like, brush your teeth and go to the toilet before you go to bed. But I don't need to go to the toilet. Doesn't matter. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night with you peeing your bed because I have to go to work tomorrow. Mm. Okay. So those two examples is when people start breaking the relationship with their bodies, and you have no idea the destruction that just that. You could go down a thought experiment, a rabbit hole just about that. So what that leaves me, and that's just one example, and many other times I didn't listen to my body when it's trying to communicate things, where my body was sweating all the time, really anxious. It would shake, and I would just feed it caffeine. I would just feed it things. It was basically screaming at me to stop, but I didn't listen because I was like, I got to go this way. I got to make more money. And then I got invited to a men's weekend where it was like psychedelic therapy, right? It was 2021, November 2021. It was the first time I ever went. And I was there, and I was like, oh, I had a new perspective of what life was about. I actually realized that I was abusing my body. I wasn't listening to it, and it's causing dis-ease. It was a lack of ease. It was causing a separation within me, which I kind of got I dove in deep. I've always dived in deep into things. So that started a journey until July 2023, where every 3 to 6 months, I would go to some kind of event like this, some kind of retreat, some kind of ceremony where I was using psychedelics as a tool to look what's inwards. I was using psychedelic plant medicines to look at myself and try to peel back the layers of the onion. And I was peeling back the layers of the onion. And then July 2023 happened, where this peeling back the layers of the onion, imagine somebody sitting there and you've got this big onion, you're peeling back these layers, and you're looking for something. Right, you're looking for something. You're like, hey, if I just peel back more layers of the onion, I'll find what I'm looking for. That was what I was doing. And July 2023, I had an experience with a plant medicine, and it was so big that it was like an ego death. I didn't understand what had happened. It's like, hey, the lesson was, be careful of this seeking because you might be afraid of what you might find. And I got shattered. So basically what happened is I was exposed to how much of my life I'd lived in shame. And shame is a very interesting emotion, where the best way I could describe it is, imagine your emotions are like a garden. You got a nice garden, you got some parsley here, you got some strawberries over there, and strawberries are joy, and this is shame, and this is guilt, and they all have their place in the garden, right? Shame for me was like a vine that I didn't realize was there, and it kind of taken over the garden. And when I sat with this particular plant medicine, which was a very big one, and I had to really prepare my body for it, like certain diets, it was big. That plant medicine was like, hey, here's your garden. I was like, oh, and then it dissolved. It basically ripped out the plant. It ripped out the shame and it was like, hey, this is what it feels like to not live your life in shame, not to second guess every decision you make, not to wonder if you're in the right relationship, right path, right whatever. You're not second guessing yourself anymore. This is what you need to do. That was the emotional water that I swam in most of my life because I was afraid of being me. 1 week later, because I was so afraid, I'm so used to being in that water, I was back. I smoked marijuana. I watched pornography. One week later, do you know why? Because I snapped back so far and I got so exposed to how free I could feel in my body that I wasn't used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I snapped back the other way. It's like somebody being like going into rehab, and then as soon as they get out of rehab, back to what they were doing. But I knew that was a 5-month experience of just kind of heavily smoking marijuana, living my life, not really realizing that I just let the vine of shame grow back in my life until December 2023, where this particular plant medicine, once you spend time with it, it's kind of always with you. And it sounds strange. It sounds strange in our very Western scientific kind of very kind of reductionist lens we look at life through. But if you talk to any First Nation person or any person who's native and lives in their land from around the world, if I say that these things are always with you and they're like an energy, they're like, yeah, I get it. December, I had to relive a 3-hour, 4-hour experience, which was the time that I spent in July. I had to relive that over about 5 days when I was going in and out of fight or flight, didn't know who I was having almost like psychosis where I'd have voices in and out of my head. I couldn't work. Everything was sensitive. Somebody would play music too loud. My body would go into fight or flight. It would start shaking. It was the scariest moment of my life because I had to learn the lesson that, hey, you've gone back to what you were trying to escape from, which is the shame you spent most of your life in. Since I made it through that, my life has expanded, and it's I don't even like using the word unbelievable or incredible because it is believable and it is credible and it's a fucking amazing. And you have to go through the darkness. And all I had to do is just feel. That's all these things invite you to do. If anybody wants to learn how to live life better is, okay, learn how to feel your feelings as best you possibly can. All the feelings that you don't want to feel, all the itchy, scratchy spots that you feel yourself avoiding. You're like, oh, I don't want to feel that. Well, on the other side of that is expansion the other way. So that pivotal moment in July really was probably the shift for me. And then I didn't really get it, had to revisit it again. Life will teach you by metaphor or 2x4. And I learned by metaphor the first time. I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then I got to learn by the 2x4 in December where I literally thought I had schizophrenia. Yeah, so.
Okay.
That is the answer to that question. And ever since then, things have been different.
Okay, it's a beautiful answer. Okay. How, outside of plant medicine and that type of approach, how does somebody recognize shame before it gets to that level?
Shame is anything you hide. Anything you hide. If you want to hide parts of your body, a lot of people have shame around their body. Mm-hmm. Like even over the weekend, man, I was realizing I suck my stomach in quite often. It's almost unconscious. So the shame is like in my nervous system where I'll be around certain people. Even now, like if I was at the beach around a group of people, part of me would want to suck in my stomach because there's part of me that's like doesn't want to relax because if I relax, I might look fat. Mm. Like, little things like that. Like, yeah, shame is anything you hide. If you are hiding from things in your life, you have shame around it. There's shame-based behavior. Anytime you use the word language should or shouldn't, that's also shame-based language where whatever, oh, I should have done that. It never feels good when you say that. Oh, I should have bought Bitcoin when it was cheap. How do you feel after that? It's like, well, I don't feel good. Or I should have done that. We need to stop shoulding and coulding on ourselves. A lot of people are just like, should have done this, should have done that. So if somebody is constantly saying should or could or should have, that's a good indication that there's shame around things. And there's nothing wrong with shame. We need healthy shame. There's healthy shame and there's toxic shame. I don't even like, maybe not even toxic shame, but like shame that is embodied. So the example is you make a mistake. If it's like, oh, I made a mistake or I am a mistake. I've seen it happen so long where people get constructive feedback from something. I've seen it at work. They're like, oh, well, something goes sideways, right? Something goes sideways at work. And they're like, oh, I guess I'm fucked up then. I guess it's the sign that I shouldn't be doing this. Or you just made a mistake and that's how you learn. If babies had have had that same mindset of, oh, I guess this isn't for me, I guess it's a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing this, none of them would have ever learned how to walk. They would all be crawling still because they'd try to walk and they'd be like, oh, well, I guess this is a sign that this is not meant for me. It's like, or that baby isn't rooted in shame yet and is just going to keep trying till they get it. Just like any adult that tries anything. Oh, well, I guess that wasn't it. What did I learn? What can I move on from? It's not a sign that I'm broken. It's not a sign that I'm not meant to go down this path. I made a mistake, and it's okay to make mistakes. That's how people can really start being like, where am I ashamed? Like, where do I feel shame? It's a very difficult, it's one of the most difficult emotions to deal with because it's like, hey, Kevin, what's the thing you are most ashamed of you've never told anybody? It's like, anyway, back to you, Ahren. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
people don't want to talk about it because love heals shame. Love is the opposite of shame. Hate is not the opposite of love. Shame is, in my opinion. Love is expansive, like, oh my God, you feel connected to everything. What's the opposite of that? Like, it's like, roll up on a little ball, bury me in the ground, and forget about me. It's the opposite. It's expansive or contractive. Are you going to expand or contract? And whatever is contracting you in your life is probably the energy of shame. And the only way to heal it is love. So can you love what you are most deeply ashamed of? Very difficult, because you have all these stories of like, well, I've never told anybody this. I could never, if people knew this thing about me, they would all think I'm fucked up and they think I'm a monster. That's the shame talking. And as soon as you share what you're deeply shamed about and somebody's like, oh yeah, man, me too. Or, oh, that sounds really hard. You're like, oh, because the biggest thing that shame is afraid of is not love, it's rejection. Because imagine sharing what you are most deeply shamed about. And people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You'll close off even more. So love heals, man. It's your job to do it. It's nobody else's. It's your job. So that's how people can start being free of their embodied shame. And healthy shame is like, you make some stupid comment at work, and you're like, hey man, that's not cool. You're like, okay, got it. Some immature comment about something, and you're like, hey, that's not cool. You're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Thank you. And you feel that flush in your face maybe, and you're like, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to challenge you. 60-second answer on this one.
Oh, shit.
I like the long ones, but I got a question. I want to make sure I get to a question because I'm excited to see where that goes.
All right.
I don't know what you would classify. I'm guessing it's the spiritual. You're probably more spiritual than you were in the past in terms of energetics, in terms of psychedelics, in terms of all that stuff. How has that changed for you since you were 18 years old?
I would just say I'm more connected to myself. That's what spirituality is, except we put it in a little fucking box. That's all it is. I'm more deeply connected to myself. That's how it changed since I was 18. 15-second answer.
Nice. Okay. All right. Go wherever you want with this one. But as someone who is on this weird ass growth journey and working on themselves every day and trying to grow something and doubting and having identity crises very, very frequently, oftentimes people ask me about my wife and what my wife means to me. What does Lexi mean to you?
So much. It's you can't really put it into words. Words are a poor tool to communicate emotions and feelings.
Especially love.
Terrible. I imagine trying to communicate emotions like an hourglass, and the hourglass is really big at the top, and by the time you get down to the words, it's like a single grain of sand falling down. Lexi has been with me. Think about it, we've been together almost 10 years. So I met her when I was about 21, 22. And now I'm turning 32 in 2 weeks from now. And think about all the hard things you go through just from that age. And she's been with me through all of it. Our love has endured through all of it. Even when I think we both didn't even know what love was. A lot of it was trauma bonding. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's very interesting where your nervous system will attract what is like it. So if you're really anxious, you'll attract the same. And people who are really calm and regulated and connected to themselves, you won't be attracted to them. So our journey has been healing that and finding love for ourselves and deepening our love for each other. So what she means to me is I can't put it into words. She's my best friend. She's hilarious. She's my dancing queen. She dances all the time. She's an amazing human being that has persevered and gone through so much in her own journey and with me. And yeah, it's lately it feels like we've really started a new chapter together, which is beautiful. We are constantly expanding, constantly trying to love each other deeper and deeper, as well as ourselves deeper and deeper. So yeah, that's the best way I can answer the question, man. But she means, I'm not going to say somebody means everything to me because I mean everything to me. Mm. It's not going to say that she's the one because I'm the one. I'm the one. And anytime somebody notices, they say, oh, that's my other half, or that's my soulmate. It's like, well, what would happen if they left? Would you not be you? I like to think it's two whole individuals working on themselves and then creating a life together. And then the beauty that can come from that is amazing. So she is so much to me in this life, and I'm so grateful I have her on my journey. So
yeah. It makes me happy. That makes me very, very happy. Not that it matters in terms of you. It's up to you to do you, like you said, but it always makes me happy to hear when there's just depth to love. Yeah. And I resonate a ton with that. What is a question that you wish you were asked more? Not necessarily by a podcaster or by a coach or whatever it is, but just in life. It's a tough one.
That's a very hard question to answer. What is a question that I wished I was asked more? I think for some reason this comes to mind, like, how are you? But not like the normal go through a grocery store. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm pretty good. How are you? I'm good. No, like, hey man, like, how are you? How are you feeling, doing, being on this journey of life? How are you? Shit's fucking scary sometimes, isn't it? Mm. Shit's like, it's magical sometimes, isn't it? It's horrific sometimes, isn't it? Like, really seeing another human being and be like, you're alive in there too, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, what's your life been like? Fucking magically horrific. Cool. What about yours? Same. Like, we're all alone. All of us. We live our lives alone. Yes, you'll have your wife and your kids and everything, but like, you come into this life alone and you'll leave this life alone. And if somebody hears that and like, oh, that's really sad. Why do you think it's sad? Only you live your life. but we have people that come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. But again, you are the last one that will face you will be the one that will feel your last breath through your body and see whoever you love for the last time. And that's really sad and really beautiful at the same time, that nobody can live your life for you. So I think that I wish I was asked more often, but a lot of people can't even ask that question because they're not really feeling what I just said.
Yeah.
There'll be a day that it's the last time you see whoever it is in your life. It'll be the last time, but you don't know when it is. That's a lot to think about, and it's like a big feeling, and some people avoid that. It's just like, don't avoid it. Don't avoid it. Feel it, because if you can feel that feeling, you don't want to feel like, oh, it'll be the last time I see my cat or my dog or my mom or my dad or my kids. There'll be a last time, and you don't know when it is. It could be today. And it's like, oh, that's really sad. It's like, but isn't there always also another feeling there of like, oh, I really want to love them. I really want to be present. I really want to be present in my life, because if I don't know when the last thing is I do something, like on a miniature level, there's people that you went to school with that died in a car crash, for example, or everybody has somebody that has passed away in their life. And the last time you saw them was the last time that you'll ever see them, and you didn't know. And you just assume that, oh, I'll see that dude again. I'll see her again. It's just a very interesting perspective. And you're like, okay, how can that help me be more present for my life, not be numbing out to life? Because that what life is really asking us all the time is like, hey, can you feel everything as much as you can, as much as you possibly can, all of it? That's why I don't like labeling emotions good or bad, because they're not good or bad. They're emotions. The purpose of life is to feel. Everything we want and everything we avoid is a feeling. That's it. Mm. So I think the question that I wished I was asked more from that place is like, how are you? How are you feeling? And it's just like, well, right now I'm feeling this. Last week I was feeling this. But thank you for asking, how are you feeling? Yeah, man, I'm feeling some weight here. Just whatever, like really connecting with other human beings. That's what I wish people did more, but I don't see a change unless there's a bunch of billions of people who are like, yeah, I'm going to turn around and face all the stuff that I'm ashamed of. Yeah, it's hard to have that, but that's what I wish people asked me more.
How have your friendships changed as you've become more self-aware and more connected to yourself and just evolved? How have the friendships around you changed or evolved?
Yeah, it's interesting. They've either expanded or contracted. If they've contracted, I don't want to participate in supporting or enabling somebody's unhealthy. Actually, I'm not going to use the word unhealthy. We were talking about this over the weekend. I don't like the toxic masculine or toxic feminine. It's just maturity. That's all it is. It's an immaturity versus maturity. Or I say, yeah, immaturity versus maturing. Maturity would say that you arrive somewhere. You don't arrive anywhere. You're just maturing. So if there's relationships that have contracted, I don't want to necessarily spend my precious life. Doesn't mean I don't love them or care about them. If they called me, I'd be there. But it's just like, I want to talk and I want to expand. I want to mature. I want to be around people that are maturing in every way, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. I want to be around people who are on the path of maturation. Or if they've contracted, I'm a mirror for what they are not willing to face. Mm. I'm a mirror. And then because I had to learn that lesson, there was people in my life that I felt uncomfortable around because they were showing a mirror of what I was avoiding. If somebody was really good with money and all that kind of stuff, I had this disdain towards them because I wasn't. It was a mirror. If somebody had a really beautiful connected relationship and I saw evidence of it, I would feel uncomfortable because I didn't have that for myself. So I would not like them. It's a mirror. So as you expand and as you get more connected to yourself and as you stop avoiding all these parts of yourself, people will attack you because they're attacking themselves. They're attacking the projection that you are. And they don't like that because it's a mirror. And they won't even be aware of it. That's the really hard part. They won't even be aware of it. And you may be aware of it. It could be even your mum. It could be your mum. It could be your dad because of their pain that they don't want to face within themselves. I've seen it. I've seen it happen to so many people. It hasn't happened to me, but I've seen it so many times. So yeah, basically it's either expanded or contracted. And that's okay. That's okay. That there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is, and you have compassion and love for everybody. It's not like, oh, I'm better than them because I can feel my emotions now. It's like maybe that's not their journey in this life this time around. Maybe next time.
How do you so what you said is very powerful because I've definitely been on the end where I saw somebody who had seemingly had something that I lacked and it was a mirror for me and it triggered me and I villainized them. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that's also allowed me to have extra empathy when I end up triggering someone because I'm mirroring, they're getting a mirror effect from me.
Yeah.
Have you had any trouble with or any experience with personalizing it? Like it,
Oh yeah.
what was that like? What was that experience like?
Personalizing it. Yeah, it's always personalized. It's you're talking about comparison, right? Like
Yep.
comparing yourself to others. I had this experience over the weekend, and my good friend, my very good friend, we were sitting there. We were in ceremony, right? So when you're in ceremony, there's a group of people. We're about to drink the medicine, so to speak. We're sitting there, and I looked over at his cup, and the powder that was going in the cup versus the powder was going into my cup. I was like, oh, why do I have more than you? And he looked at me, and this is the way he taught me. It was very interesting. He's like, because you're more of a man than I am. I was like, I was like, huh. And he's like, sit with that. I was like, he's like, there's what you know, right? And then there's your unconscious programmings that are right alongside it. And this is something that it was very interesting to me. And this is what I learned over this past weekend. I used to go into this plant medicine space, and when they would get like psychedelic, and I would look at walls and stuff, especially like you ever seen those walls that got like speckles of paint all over
Mhm.
them, like maybe a ceiling or whatever, that would create images, right? It would create images of certain things. For years, do you know what I would see all the time? I would see the Louis Vuitton symbol, the LV I would see it everywhere. It was my unconscious programming because I valued that. I valued those things. This time I was sitting there and I was like, I'm like a lens for my unconscious program. Like my vision is like a lens for like an unconscious programming, right? And I didn't see that at all because I truly, deeply do not care about that stuff at all. I know it's an embodied feeling. It's not like, oh yeah, I don't care about that stuff. But then I keep seeing the Louis Vuitton symbol subconsciously every time I go into these spaces. I did care about it. I did want that stuff. I don't care about that shit anymore. His lesson to me when I said, oh, I've got more than you, he's like, dude, he's like, I don't even see that. I don't even compare myself at all anymore because it doesn't matter.
Mm.
So I know conceptually, yeah, it doesn't matter, but I'm still noticing that I think I've got more than him, which means I think that I'm more of a man than him if I have more. There's some ego there. There's some like, oh, well, I have more than this person. And you can know it, but is it embodied? Is it integrated into is it integrated into your programming of how you view the world and how you go through life? So I don't know if that answers your question, but what I'm just saying is like I learnt firsthand when I was looking at these walls and be like, I don't see any Louis Vuitton symbol at all. And I used to see it all the time because my subconscious cared about that. It valued that. But because I did this deep emotional inner work, I didn't see it anymore. So the same way that I don't see that anymore, can I get to the place where I don't compare myself to people anymore? I know I don't want to. I know that it's a knowledge thing, but knowing and being versus doing are very different things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that was a beautiful lesson I learned in the past week about that. I was like, oh, so if I can do that with the Louis Vuitton thing, I know I can get there with comparison, especially to other men, especially thinking if they have more than me or if I have more than somebody else. Like, I know I can get there, but it's not going to be a knowledge thing. It's not going to be me logically gaslighting my own emotions, be like, I don't care about that. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. It's like, yeah, you do, because you keep seeing it. You keep seeing
Right,
it.
right.
No matter what you fucking say to yourself, you keep seeing it everywhere you go. So some deep part of you does care about it.
How have your goals, because what you're saying is what you value subconsciously, you value stuff, you don't know it, you chase that just unconsciously, you don't realize you're doing it. How have your
Yeah.
goals changed as your awareness and relationship with yourself has changed?
It's a hard, my goal. Yeah. How do you answer that? It's like what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do you know if what you're going after isn't one of those things?
Yes. Yeah, that'd probably be a better question. Yeah. How do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what you're going after is not one of those
Yeah.
things, Ahren?
Because you have to go after it to see it's not one of those. I have a client that he's in his 50s, right? Late 50s. And he has built businesses for 30 to 40 years. And he's a multi-millionaire, has a plane, has the coolest cars you could possibly imagine. And we started doing some work together, and he realized that he's basically been emotionally shut off the entire time.
Mm.
So it's like a dam that he's built. And now he's kind of crack open the dam, and he was basically in bed for 2 years with depression, crying, couldn't do anything, just like feeling it all. And he's like, when will it stop? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, he came to this realization. He's like, I built these companies and I always thought that everybody was being emotional and I was logical. And I was able to build these companies because I had my emotions shut off for 40 years. I'm like, yeah, so you could get to where you are now, so you could feel them all. So you built this amazing life where you don't have to worry about money, so you could sleep for 2.5 years and not worry about a fucking thing.
Mm.
He's like, how did that happen? I'm like, because nobody taught you to feel your emotions. If you maybe had have been able to feel your emotions, you wouldn't be able to hire and fire people emotionlessly. You wouldn't have been able to do it. So life happens for you. He had to go through what he went through to get to where he is now. And now he has built a life so that he can feel all his emotions. He could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. He could go to every plant medicine ceremony he wants, if he wanted to. He could do any of that because life happened for him. So the answer to that question is like, you have to go through things to realize that that wasn't it. But what you gained going through it has equipped you to deal with the next thing. And there's no good or bad. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. So how do I know what my goals are? Now, my purpose is not this magical vision of the future of where my life hopefully will end up through. It's more of a mission. So I wrote this down on the weekend. It says, what is my mission? My mission is to be safe. So I can help others find safety, because when you have safety, you can have peace. And when you have peace, you can really look at things that are stuck within you. And if you can look at where all the parts of you that are stuck, then why wouldn't you expand on the material world? Why, if you are afraid of going after your dreams and what you really want, so you want to be an author, you want to be a music artist, you want to build a business, if you first feel safe to feel all the shame and all the doubt and all the reasons why you think you cannot do that, and you release all of that, all there's left to do is to go after it. So that's what I do for people. That's what my purpose is. But it started with me. I have to be safe first, so that when I'm coaching people, when I'm having these kind of conversations, that if somebody throws something at me and I get really dysregulated, then I am getting sucked into their energy and I'm just participating in their energy, when that's not my job. My job is to be safe. So you know what it feels like to be around somebody that is safe, so that you are like, okay, where am I not safe? Where am I blocked? Where are my things keeping me stuck in this current perspective that I live in? I call it the prison of your own perspective. So that it's a feeling. Your purpose, in my opinion, is not something you look for out here. It's more of a feeling that you remember. It's a remembering. It's not a thing, I got to go find my purpose. Well, who's finding it? Is it some other guy or is it you? Mm. And once you find it, all your purpose is a feeling, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Oh, I found it. It's my purpose. I feel it. Okay, cool. Go do things that you feel that feeling. Oh, I don't know where it's going to go. No, of course you don't know where it's going to go. It's one of my favorite books is called The Line Tracker's Guide to Life by Boyd Vardy. And he grew up with these people who were part of the Shangaan tribe in, I think it's Zimbabwe or South Africa. And these people track lions, right? They've tracked them for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I have this saying, and it's tied directly to how I believe purpose is. The saying is, I don't know where I'm going, but I know exactly how to get there. So when they're tracking a lion, they don't know where the lion is going, but they know exactly how to get there. They follow the next paw print in life. So a lot of people, they think they have to have this vision like, oh, well, I have to have Lamborghinis, or I have to live in Costa Rica, or I have to live in Hawaii, or I have to be making this amount of money. Oh, okay. No. What I believe we have to do is find the next paw print in our lives that feels really good. You know what it feels like. We know what it feels like. And just courageously follow the next paw print. I don't know where I'm going, but I know exactly how to get there because I know what this purpose feels like within me. I know what it feels like. And if I'm doing something that I'm not feeling that, then maybe I need to go back to the last paw print that felt good and then go in a different direction. Just like if you lost track of a line, you're like, okay, where was the last paw print? We'll go back and we'll reassess from there, and then we'll go and try something else. So you might try a million things. You might get a degree. You might drop out of university. You might work this job. You might work in this industry. All of those things, you are trying to find this feeling that you are meant here to do. So that's what I believe of how you find or remember your purpose, because all it is a feeling. Everything we want is a feeling.
I always say uncover, because it's already there.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not there. Hidden. It's maybe hidden. It is hidden, actually. It's hidden, but it's not like you're creating it out of nothing.
Right.
Like you said, uncover. It's there already. It's your job to uncover it.
Last question before we get out of here. At one point in this conversation, I don't remember when it was, you said something about knowing who you are. What does that mean to you today? And who, if it's possible, who would you define yourself as?
Ram Dass said it really well. He said, I'm loving awareness. Because who I am is not this body, because this will fade and turn into dust. Does that mean I never was? So what is I then? It's a crazy question, like, who are you? People will say, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I sell cars, or I'm a coach, or I'm a husband, I'm a father. It's just like, yes, yeah. But they're all things that have they're all things that we have identities attached to. But when that ends, because everything ends, right? This life that we live is going to end. Does that mean that you never were, that you, or he was this, or they were that? When you really connect to your soul, and Carl Jung talks about the soul, which is a very interesting take, because a lot of people roll their eyes when they're like, oh, you got to get in touch with your soul. It's just like, what the fuck does that mean? I remember hearing that and being like, soul, like, what does that mean? Carl Jung said your soul is like a psychological organ. And it's this thing that's always there. And I think that your soul is attached to your nervous system. So, like, laid over your nervous system like that. So, my soul will communicate to me through my nervous system because it doesn't have words. It'll communicate me through my dreams. It'll communicate through my feelings. It'll be like, I've had too many experiences in my life that I can't argue with. Like spinning out of control at 100 kilometers an hour on a snowy road and have this big fight or flight thing through my body. And then this very calmness that was like, you're fine. You're not going to die. Just write it out.
Mm.
And I felt calm and I was like, okay. And I trusted it. I trusted it. I was like, I just knew. There was no doubt. I was like, okay. And as I started slowing down, I was still spinning. I started laughing. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was that? I've had too many moments in my life like that. So, who am I? If you asked, like, well, I'm a 31-year-old Australian man, all again, age, where I grew up, all these things that make you who you are, your identity. But what we really are, if you really sit there, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching me or me watching right now, I'm just the awareness that is within this body. Like right now, you're sitting in your home and there's your spare room in the background, and you got your wall and you got your computer in front of you, and all you really are is the awareness of that. It's yeah, and what my job is to expand what that is aware of by feeling all the parts of me that are not, that are stuck, or that I'm avoiding, or whatever. All the parts of me, even avoiding joy. And like a lot of people don't feel joy enough or play enough. I bought a skateboard recently and I'm rolling around on a skate park having fun before work. I work in this high pressure sales environment. Yesterday at 9:30 in the morning, I'm literally at a skate park having fun. And everybody else is probably stressed out on the way to work. And I get to do this because it's the life I created, but I'm like, why can't I do this? Why can't I be in 20 minutes late because I was riding my skateboard around? Well, you can't do that. You got to go to work. It's like, well, fuck you. I'm going to have fun. Like, that's who I am. I'm having fun right now. And then later I'm going to be really serious. I'm going to be on the phone. I'm going to be in go mode. Then other times I'm going to be at the gym. And other times I'm going to laugh. And then other times I'm going to dance. I'm going to do all these things because that's who I am. And it's not this reductionist thing of like, I'm Ahren. Well, all Ahren is a construct of everything I've ever experienced and everything that's ever happened to me. That's all Ahren is. If you wiped my memory, I wouldn't be Ahren anymore. Like, who would I be then? It's like, fuck.
You'd just be a meat suit.
Yeah, just be a meat suit, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Like, who are you? And then noticing all the things you cling on to about what you think makes you you.
Yeah.
And then if those things were taken away from you, would you be you? Very hard. It's like, would you be you if you got in a car accident, you'd be a vegetable? Would you be you if you were gay? Would you be you if you were a woman, a child, black, white, Asian? Would you be you? And it reminds me, and I've deeply felt this. There's this quote from, he was a Sufi philosopher. So a Sufi is like kind of like an offshoot of Islam. And his name was Rumi. And he has this quote. And he says, "I'm not a drop in the ocean. I'm the entire ocean in a drop." I see you, Kevin, as me living a different life, like a different character in a video game. But I am you and you are me. You're the entire ocean in a drop, and the drop is your body you live in. And I have too much evidence, like when you get goosebumps at the same time as somebody watching a movie, or you're watching music together and there's tens of thousands of people there and you're singing the words together and there's this feeling that you can't put into words of feeling deeply connected to other human beings. That's what that guy was talking about 2,000-3,000 years ago. That's what they've all been talking about. That's what all religions have been talking about. I imagine religion as cupping the air and being like, "Hey, this is a secret right here," and people being like, "Oh, can I have some?" It's like, "Well, you have to come into this building and you have to read this book and then you can get some." It's like, isn't it all around us at all times? No, it's right here and you can only get it right here.
Yeah.
That's what I see it as. It's like, it's always there for you to access. So
that's the reason I like the question, is because the question, the answer goes as deep as the person answering it. So that's always one of my favorite questions. All right, so
you meet people as deep as you've met yourself.
100%, and that, my friend, is why you are a wonderful coach, because you have gone to depths that allow you to take other people to depths and bring awareness to their journeys and their futures and their pasts and why they are where they are today. So I have a ton of love for you. I appreciate the opportunity to jump on your platform and have a cool conversation with you. Anything you want to close with, it is your show at the end of the day.
Thanks for having this idea. It's a good idea. It's good for me to get clarity on things too.
Of course.
And when you're really speaking from a centered place, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying next. I'm just being. Like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, what should I say next?" It's just like, well, that's what I was talking about at the start. What should I say next? When you are splintering yourself. Oh, what should I say based on what this person thinks I should say? No, just be you. And the world and people who are around you will call you out on whether or not you're being you or not. If you're not being mature, you won't have relationships go your way. You won't have life go your way. And that's just life and relationships and people showing you what you need to work on. And you'll either look at it or you won't. One of my favorite quotes is by Peter Crone. He said, "Life will present you with people and circumstances to show you where you're not free." So that would be a closing message. It's like sitting here and asking questions. There was nothing that I felt like uncomfortable about. There was nothing that you asked where I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go there," which I feel a lot of immense gratitude for me, because I spent most of my life carefully choosing words and answering questions and existing because I wanted you to like me. I wanted you to care about me. I wanted myself to think that I thought that you thought I was smart or worthy or adequate or lovable. And sitting here now is I don't battle with that anymore. And it's so much energy that can be used for other things. So yeah, hope you got a lot out of this podcast today. I just want to say thank you to Kevin for doing this, and we'll see you all next week. I love you guys. Bye.